Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 13 of the Chalk Dinosaur podcast. I'm John O'Halloran, your host, and today I had a conversation with a friend of mine named Jeremy Colbert. He's a musician, a guitar player, songwriter, singer. He plays in a folk rock band called Nameless in August. But today I'm here to talk to him about his solo project, which he's about to release the first album. His solo project alias is Taragape. That's T-A-R-A-G-A-P-E. And this first album that he's releasing is called Spirit Maze. And he's got a very interesting story about how the whole album came together. And every part of it just very, very puzzle-like in terms of how it all came together and became a thing. And it's all culminating this Saturday at their album release show, at Jeremy's album release show, at a place called the Dragon's Den in Homestead, which is a really interesting sounding venue. You'll hear Jeremy explain everything about all this during the episode today. We talked a lot about the album, music. As with most guests, I feel like we really just scratched the surface on so many topics and could have gone on for much longer. So hopefully I'll have another chance to dive a little deeper into some of these topics with Jeremy. And he was one of the featured artists on the Chalk Dinosaur and Friends album from 2017, I think it was released. Jeremy Colbert. He plays the Taragape, which is a really cool melodic percussion instrument. Looks like an inverted steel drum, kind of. You play with your hands. And I'll always remember hearing him at Farm Jam for the first time. It was the first time I've ever heard or seen that instrument or heard anybody play it. And he was playing it very well. And it was, it really stuck in my head. And was really happy to eventually connect with him and make a piece of music together. And then from that piece of music, made a second piece of music, kind of more like electronic, kind of sampled, mangled thing out of his Taragape playing. But one of them is just pretty raw, kind of ambient, meditative piece called Embers at Dawn, which is a reference to the first time I saw Jeremy. And I actually didn't meet him then, but, sat around by the fire and listened to him play the Embers at Dawn. It was a very memorable experience. And, I was happy to have a chance to talk to him today on short notice. I just wanted to, talk to him about this album because he seems to have been putting a lot of thought and effort into this, which is interesting to me and cool to see, because that's a whole nother part of releasing music and making music is the presentation, and that's something that's definitely a shortcoming for me, or a shortfall, or whatever you call it, a weakness. I don't have the patience a lot of times to really invest the time and effort into kind of presenting something. So, I was interested to hear his ideas about that and his approach to it. And like I said, there's so much more I want to talk to him about, but the main point of today is just to talk about the album and the show that's coming up on Saturday. I'm going to put links in the video description and the information, and enjoy the conversation with Jeremy Colbert. I think I'll just say hi. welcome to the show.
Hi.
I'll share that story.
I think we have a lot to talk about. I think the origin story should definitely be shared at some point, because it's a pretty beautiful synchronicity, and that's kind of what this music's all about.
Yeah. So maybe, I guess maybe share some information about what you got coming up here in a couple days.
Cool. So I have an album release show happening on Saturday, which is 2/22. This is 22nd, and it's been a long time coming. It's been a labor of love. As you said, I'm in a band called Nameless in August, and we're a folk rock group here in Pittsburgh, and we've released a couple albums. And on last year, and on right around 1st of January, I decided that I was going to do a solo album, and I was connecting with some musicians in Boulder, Colorado, and they invited me to come out and record an album. And it's a very unique album. It features, as you said, the Taragape, which generally they call it a handpan, which is kind of like, I explain to people, handpan is like calling an instrument a guitar. Calling it a Taragape is like calling a guitar a Fender or a Gibson or a Martin. It's kind of like the brand. But essentially, it's this. It looks like a spaceship turtle shell. It's 2 pieces of steel, hollow on the inside, and sounds like this. So it's a really beautiful instrument.
How long have you been playing that? Or when did you start playing that instrument?
I received the instrument in the fall of 2016. So over 4 years. And that's also an interesting story as well. But yeah, to finish just rapping about the album, I went out there and basically worked with a producer who, 2 producers actually, Dango Rose, who's in a band called Elephant Revival, really, really beautiful, just gorgeous group, kind of transcendent folk group. And then Evan Reeves, who actually has ties back here to Pittsburgh. And that instrument is arranged with strings on the album. So there's cello, double bass, and violin. But I'm also a guitar player, a singer. So the album also features 3 tracks that are vocal and lyric and guitar tracks, so fully produced. So the album kind of alternates between both worlds. And then the other thing about it is it's recorded in 432 hertz, which, long story short, is our standard is 440 hertz. It's what any music you pretty much listen to is tuned to, which basically means that the A at a certain octave is tuned so that it vibrates at 440 times a second. And there's a school of thought that believes that 432 times per second at that note is a more in tune frequency with nature. It's really hard to prove that. It's not really something that you can say for sure. But regardless, it has a slightly lower and a little bit of a warmer feel to it. And it's basically an experiment for me. And we did this whole album in 432 to try it out. And there were definitely a lot of really great things about it. And there was a lot of challenges about it. But I think it turned out beautiful. So that's it.
That's cool. So how did you get in touch with the people that you ended up recording it with in Boulder?
So I became a fan of Elephant Revival They came to Pittsburgh once. A friend invited me out to the show. Like synchronistically, I ended up being at the same place for it. It was at the Fun House at Mr. Small's. I was upstairs at an event that was happening, and they were playing downstairs in the main hall. And I ended up walking in late to the show, and I walked in, and they're in the middle of this song, and they're a magical group. There's something about them. And I was just like in awe. And then they finished the song and they were like, "Thank you, good night." I was like, that's it. Oh man, it was such a tease. So I started listening to their music and fell in love with them and saw them perform a handful of times. And then found out they were playing their final show. They'd announced they were going to go on hiatus after 11 years. So I saw their final show at Red Rocks. It was just truly stunning. And, I kept up on the mailing list, and I saw that the bass player, Dango Rose, was starting something called the Elephant Collective. And it's based out of Boulder, and it's basically like a grassroots sort of agency for artists, and they do consultation, songwriting, coaching, and recording. So I scheduled a call with him, and like we instantly just clicked right away. Scheduled a couple more calls, and then it was more like coaching consultation as an artist. And then it just got to the point where he invited me out to record, and I said yes.
That's cool. When was that?
That was around October of last year. So October of 2018, actually. Yeah.
How long was were you out there for? Or was the recording process?
Yeah, I had to fly out about 5 times, which was interesting. And there were a lot of really great things about that, and some not so great. Luckily, I had built up a lot of airline miles, and I completely depleted those through this whole process. But that was really helpful. But we had to be super efficient. Because I would fly out for about a week at a time each time I went out. And that was great. Like as a musician, that's something I've always wanted to do, to just go to a studio and have a chunk of time where I'm doing nothing but working on a record.
Right.
And to be in a beautiful place, it was just amazing. Boulder's so inspiring in itself. So luckily, I was able to have the means to fly out on about 4 or 5 different occasions for about a week at a time, and we knocked it out throughout the week.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It was a surreal process. It was really great. Got to meet some amazing musicians, and Dango even invited me to play in his group at a festival that was just beautiful. And so there was a lot of extra stuff in there too, but it was a great process.
Yeah. That's cool. I'm looking forward to hearing it. Maybe tell me about the album art and all the stuff that you got going on with it.
Yeah, let me kind of I'll explain it as I hold it up to the camera. So this is the album art. There's a lot I could say about it, so I'll just kind of condense it. I just got these in the mail the other day, and I'm super stoked. So I'll talk about the concept of how I'm presenting the music first, just so you can see what this is. So it kind of looks like a small vinyl. I'm lovingly calling this the digital vinyl. So the front is the cover, and then when you turn it around, you have the track listing, the liner notes, and then you have this download code. So I wanted to have something physical to give and to sell people, but I didn't want to have CDs because, they're on the out.
Right.
They're totally on the out. And I just end up having 1,000 of them sitting in my basement, like always
so
happens.
Behind that curtain.
Yeah, it's what it's like. So when you come see me at a show, I'll be able to sell this. So you're basically buying an art print. and you're getting the music with the art print.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool. I haven't seen that ever.
I haven't either. So here you go. You guys can all steal this
I like
idea.
it. It's like it's rigid too. It's not like like a poster consistency. It's like a rigid canvas, like substantial thing.
Yeah,
it's nice.
It's got some weight to it. 2 cardstocks, and it's got a buffer, thick piece of, I don't know what kind of paper in between, but it feels good. It feels great. And if you see this up close, the artist Crystallize, who's phenomenal, she prints on this like almost iridescent paper, so it has a really cool shimmer to it. But I'll talk about the symbol first, and then I'll talk about how I met up with the artist. So the symbol is 2 symbols in one, and most people recognize the front symbol. It's the caduceus. It's it's what we typically know as the symbol for the medical industry. And it's actually kind of ironic because the symbol was mistakenly first used to represent the medical industry in 1902 or 1903 by the U.S. Army Medical Corps. And what the symbol that was supposed to be used, and that is also used correctly to describe a medical, or to present a medical, a historic medical symbol, is what you see with the Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is a rod with a single snake that wraps up it. So if you see the Blue Cross Blue Shield, if you Google that, you'll see the single snake going up the rod, and the cross is in the background. The U.S. Army Medical Corps accidentally, maybe they did it on purpose. Actually, karmically, they probably did it on purpose because they used the dual snakes with the wings, which is the caduceus, and it's also known as the staff of Hermes. So this is actually a very spiritual symbol. It represents Kundalini energy. It represents the dual serpents, the masculine and the feminine, and the kind of the rising of that, and to, the wings could represent enlightenment. But it also represents some other things, and the staff of Hermes symbol historically throughout the history of our time has represented commerce. And I just find it incredibly ironic that our medical industry has been using a symbol of commerce as its main symbol. And I think that that's just really ironic.
Yeah.
So part of me in a small way is like trying to reclaim this symbol, the caduceus. But then in the background it's a fractal 5-pointed star. So you can see the 5-pointed star, the main one here. And then there's actually 5 overlapping layers that go down. And it's called a Pythagorean lute. The Pythagorean lute, Pythagoras was a geometric genius, and this was one of the fractal shapes that he had really highlighted. But the shape itself, I'd never seen it before in my life. This was not familiar to me. And I was lucky enough to have been able to fly to Peru in 2016 and work with ayahuasca. And during a very powerful ayahuasca ceremony, I saw this shape cascade across my vision, the Pythagorean lute, like 4 times, and I'd never seen it. And it was the color spectrum, and it was from cool to warm colors, and it kept just like going across. And I'm like, what is this thing? I have no idea, but I saw it super clearly, and it was clear as day. And then a couple months later, when I was back in Pittsburgh, I ran into James Jyer, of Naked Geometry, and he is a sacred geometry wizard, and basically he put out a map of old world geometry. It took him 7 years to do this. And you're just looking through it, and you see all of like the classic geometric shapes, and some I didn't know. And then I looked and I stopped, and I was like, that's what I saw. That's exactly what I saw. What is that? And I contacted him, and he told me a little bit about it. And I got a pendant that I wore for a while, for about a year. And then I took a project through Bricolage Theater Company, and they were doing these art installations on a mini scale. They do big immersive art, I guess immersive theatrical experiences, but they were doing small scale ones and commissioning artists throughout the city. So I wanted to have one where I was playing the handpan, and we came up with kind of a concept that was combining sort of shamanism with Western medicine, and that was kind of the theme of it. Mm-hmm. So that's when I decided, I figured out that you could actually overlay these two symbols, and they overlay perfectly. And so I created the symbol for that experience, which happened actually in October of 2018, I believe, right before I started the process of this album. And James Gyre of Naked Geometry, he was able to perfect the symbol. So I came up with the concept, and he basically came up with this and was able to laser cut this wood. And the first one was actually big. It was probably like 3 times as big as this. And then I have smaller little tokens. So that became the symbol of this experience that I was providing for people, where basically we were having them come in and go through this like sort of, psychologically shamanic and experience that also had like a Western medicine like approach. Like I was like a doctor shaman in this experience. And this kind of became the symbol of that. And it was really successful, really powerful. And so then when I started recording this album, it became the symbol for the album. And the song that I used in that experience, and the song that is the name of the album, is called Spirit Maze. So I've also decided to call this symbol the Spirit Maze. And then I hooked up with Crystallize, and this is actually, it's a painting. It's a 20 inch by 20 inch painting, about, yay high and yay wide. And she did it beautifully. The colors and everything is more than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, that's great. I love the image and the painting. So the woodcut came first, or okay, and then Crystallize is the name of the artist who you found or met at Electric Forest, you said?
Yeah.
And was she doing like a live painting thing, or did you know of her before?
That's actually a funny story too. Electric Forest is an adult playground with art installations everywhere. So I was walking through this outdoor art gallery where they basically had all these really nice wooden panels set up, and like every corner of this, it featured a different artist. And every artist there is amazing. But I came around the corner and I saw this one panel, and I was just like, I stopped dead in my tracks, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, the color scheme, the sacred geometry, everything about this art was just really speaking to me. And I fell in love with it. I brought my friend over. I'm like, you have to take a look at this, like this art. Who is this artist? I took some photos of it. And then a day or so later, I'm walking actually to meet up with James, because James of Naked Geometry was vending. And I'm meeting with him, and I see this woman, and she has this tank top art print on. It's really beautiful art. And I walk up to her, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, if that is the type of art that you dig, like, you have to see this artist. There's an art gallery over there through the forest. If you just walk over that way, this person instantly became my favorite artist. And she gets this big smile on her face. And I'm like, what? And she points, and she's like, it's me. Like, I'm the artist. Like, this is my art. I'm Crystal. And we instantly became friends. And there were some more synchronicities with my friend who was with. She actually saw one of her paintings while she was in Costa Rica and had a moment with it, and we finally
Oh,
put
wow.
two and two together. Yeah, it was really really neat. And then yeah, there's a lot more with that. But Crystal Eyes, it's KrystleyYez, and she was based out of Boulder for 10 years, which also lined up. And she just moved back to Milwaukee to her hometown to be with family. And yeah, she took the commission. She did a fantastic job with it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Such a big backstory to this album.
There's a lot.
That's great.
There's a lot.
It's it's a lot more than what seems to be normal for me at least. It's really cool to have such a defined concept for all the stuff, like the artwork and the music. And when you were developing the music, would you be doing that in here, or would you be doing that in Boulder? Or I guess
Mostly here. Yeah, that's a great question. And just to touch upon what you said, like this was the first time that I've embarked on a solo album, and I have been wanting to do it for probably 10 years, like
Yeah.
I've always put my sights in other projects, and I've lovingly have done so and released probably 3 studio albums and other projects that I've been really proud of. But over that time I was writing a lot of music and writing a lot of music and evolving. So when it came time for me to do an album, I mean, I had to choose from 10 years of material and this new instrument. So I basically put a lot of intention into it because of that. But it also just lined up in a way. But most of the music was written here or during experiences at like a festival or anything like that. The guitar songs, actually one of the guitar songs I wrote in Colorado, in its entirety, and then like refined it back here. A lot of the Terapan music was inspired by very potent experiences, whether that was being in a room with really like-minded people while they are the first track on the album is called Collective Groove, and I just wrote the opening riff while I was sitting in the room, and there was just these amazing people in the room when they were all just conversing and connecting, and I just started playing music to kind of fit that vibe, and that's how that song started. And Spirit Maze is one of the most, that song means so much to me in so many ways. And yeah, a lot of this album is inspired very, very much so by plant medicines as well. Just having really deep inner experiences and trying to bring that out.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember the first time you said you got that instrument in fall of 2016. So
Yes. Right? Yep, September.
Okay. Well, I forget what year it was then, but first time I heard you at Farm Jam around the fire in the early morning, that was definitely one of the like strongest memories from that festival. It was
it's probably 2017.
Okay.
It was because because we actually met the night before I had my birthday, and I think I was the October of 2017, because that was when I walked outside of the show right before the talk show.
Okay, I was trying to remember what show that was.
It was talk on October 5th because my birthday was at midnight on October 6th. So it would have been Farm Jam of 2017.
Okay, because I had one of my favorite nights ever, and then the sun was coming up and the massive fire was still burning low, but it was still going. And I heard Jeremy playing the Terapan out there, and that was the first time I'd ever heard or seen that, and it was such a perfect sound for that moment, in like the dawn hours, after such a good night. I might have been sitting there with Dhruva. I'm not sure.
Dhruva was there.
Okay.
Dhruva was definitely there.
I wasn't sure if that was the same year, but but yeah, and then but I didn't talk to you or anything at that moment, so I didn't actually know what your name was or know if you lived in Pittsburgh or anything really about you, and was hoping I would be able to figure that out, because whenever I wanted to start putting together an album with different musicians from Farm Jam, I thought about you, but I didn't, have your contact info or, then I just, recognized you at a show at the Rex a couple months later, and was able to get your contact info then.
I think it was like, I was walking into the Rex and you recognized me and you were like, "Hey, are you the dude that plays the instrument?" And I was like, "Yes," and we connected. And then I think it was like the next day. It was either the next day or the day after, like within a day or two. Okay. I was over at your studio and we were working on the collaboration that ended up being on the Chalk Dinosaur and Friends album.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a very special year for me in that story, and then also the similar types of kind of connections from that year at Farm Jam Lima. That was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I still remember that morning too. I actually wrote, so talking about experiences, one of my favorite things to do is to like have an experience, usually like an all-night experience, whether that's at a festival or working on my own. I like to do like mushroom meditations and just like really go in. And so I remember actually going up on top of that hill after I met you, and I wrote this riff. So the cool thing about that is every single time I play that, I'm now taken to being at the top of the hill at Farm Jam when the sun is rising and being in that moment. And that's what I love about this instrument, because typically when I write music in the past, and when I still do, it's, it's guitar, it's lyrics, it's a lot of more intellectual stuff that goes into it. But with this, it's like, it's so experiential.
Yeah, that's great. That kind of. Do you have that with other experiences too, where kind of certain patterns you play are, really strongly tied to certain experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a really empathetic person. I've always been really sensitive. So I have to make an association with me in an experience it happens daily. Like I even like I work a lot with dreams. Like I recall dreams. I keep track of them.
Really?
I've been doing that since I've been 17.
That's awesome.
And it's fascinating. So like I'm just constantly making connections, and so anytime I'm playing, like I'm taken back to where I was when I came up with it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Music's definitely a super powerful kind of marker or something, or a time marker. I don't know if I've had that experience playing, but definitely hearing certain music. If you had listened to it a lot during a certain period of time, it can kind of bring back not only a memory but like a feeling. that the music's tied to.
For sure. Especially if you like see it live, if you're at a concert and you have that moment with the music, and you're just with all that energy and those people, and like, and every time I hear that song, I'm taken back to that moment.
Yeah. So with your dreaming stuff, that was something that I got really interested in for a while. Kind of have like, not so much recently, but yeah. Are you trying to record your dreams with the intention of being able to lucid dream, or?
Yeah, and that's definitely part of it. Well, the first experience I had with lucid dreaming was when I was 17, and it was so powerful that I will credit that moment as being the catalyst that launched me on my own personal spiritual journey. Like there was nothing, yeah, there was nothing at that moment. I mean, when you're 17, like you're not thinking about that kind of stuff. You know, everything is a much more condensed version of reality, and you're just kind of in your own little world, and you're kind of the center of your own universe. And then I had this dream where, long story short, my deceased grandfather came to me in the dream, and it was like, I could talk about dreams for hours, but like basically when you start to become aware of that you're dreaming in a dream, there are different levels of it. So this dream was a perfect example of it, where I was in his house, and there was family everywhere, and so much was happening all around, and someone was announcing they were having a baby in the next room, and I'm sitting down at the table, and he's across from me, and I didn't think twice about anything. But he's not alive anymore in that moment. And then he said something to me in the dream, and I looked at him. And then as I looked at him, I started to realize, like, my actual consciousness started kicking in. It was like, wait, he's not supposed to be here. And in that moment, you started to realize that I was dreaming, and like continued. But it was like still, I wasn't fully aware. Mm-hmm. And in those moments, you have to be careful, because you can wake yourself up. Like if you start thinking in your dream, you wake up
excited or something.
Yeah, exactly. And in that same moment, in that dream, I walked into the bathroom because I actually had to pee. In real life, I actually my bladder was full, and I walk into the bathroom, and I tried to go to the bathroom, but I couldn't, which I'm really thankful that I wasn't actually able to, because I would have pissed my bed for sure, because it was so real. But I remember looking to my right, and there was this full mirror. There was this entire wall was a mirror, and I saw myself. And everything just went into slow motion, and I was just staring, and I just started moving and looking at my body in the mirror, and I was fully present and fully lucid, and I started hearing this distant sound that was like a and then instantly my alarm went off, and I was like, I came out of it like, what was that? And I wrote it down, and that started me. And since then, you know, I've gone lucid over a dozen times for sure. But the reason that I record my dreams is to practice getting into that mode. It's just like anything. It's like an instrument, you know, the more you do it, the more you are adept at continuing the process. And B, because if you start to record your dreams, you find really interesting ties with your day-to-day life, like some beyond coincidence stuff. Yeah. And I've had it happen enough times to know that there's something to it. Like right. I know that there's more of a connection there. So it fascinates me, and that's why I do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I read a book once called Gateway to the Inner Self, Lucid Dreaming, or maybe it's just Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self. And the author talked about all of his kind of experiments and experience with dreaming. And yeah, it really does seem just like a way to interface with your subconscious, kind of in a really interesting way. Like he would experiment with asking questions to dream figures, or like interacting with them and asking them questions, and they would give them answers. And then he ended up going on to address like the dream itself, like what's behind the dream or something, which was pretty interesting. I don't know. Yeah, that was really fascinating to me too. But I got to the point where I was able to remember maybe like 3 dreams in a night, which was great. Like I'd have like 3 detailed, interesting kind of scenarios that played out overnight. That it's just interesting to like to see what happens in that world. And but yeah, I was never really able to become aware in it. Maybe there was one time when I did. I was in some kind of like, I was in my dorm. It looked like my dorm suite from college with my suite mates, but it was, we were like trapped there for some reason. Like it was like we were being held there, a prisoner or something. And, but then I realized, I was dreaming and I could just leave. So then I just left, whereas it felt like we were trapped there. And then after that, I think I tried to go somewhere or do something, and yeah, just got like the excitement of that awareness, kind of made it collapse.
Did you wake up? Do you remember if you woke up?
Yeah, that would be, yeah, I think so. Actually, I'm not sure.
Sometimes, yeah, because sometimes you just kind of default back into the dream, and then like you'll remember being aware, and then you're like, oh, and then it turned back into like a regular dream.
Yeah,
you're gonna lose it, and then you go back on autopilot.
I think it ended there because I don't remember anything after that.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the coolest like things that dreams present is they'll present us with in the dream state where anything is possible. I mean, everyone's had dreams where they're like, what was that? That doesn't work in reality.
Yeah.
But our dreams are constantly bringing in these thoughts of worry, or these thoughts of constriction, or like, I always have these dreams where like, oh, I want to do something, but I can't do it because I'm not supposed to do it. And I think whenever you start to become lucid, you are presented with the option to overcome that. And I think that's a big teacher for us. Yeah. Because I think that's true in this waking dream state, because it's kind of what it is. I think that's true in this, our conscious life as well, because we limit ourselves so much, and I do it all the time. But I think dreams can teach you, in that way. The other night I became aware, and I was like, by myself, and I'm like, oh, I'm dreaming, like I want to interact with someone right now. And I walk over to my neighbor's house, and I'm at their door, and I'm just like, I'm in a dream. I can just barge into this house right now, and it doesn't matter because I'm dreaming. And then I went to the door, and I'm like, what if I'm not dreaming? what if they're the stories that, like, I'm thinking this in my dream, like the stories they're going to tell of me just like running in their house like I'm dreaming, like I'm going to be so embarrassed. And it's just funny because it is a dance, and I like how you said interface with your subconscious, because it's like this dance between our conscious and subconscious. And like I said, I mean, I could talk about dreams forever. We could probably have an entire series of podcasts on them because I've gone really deep, and had some amazing moments in them. But honestly, just because we're talking about it, I bet it'll probably end up into your dream state somehow, or you'll remember it more, because once you start focusing on it, just like anything else, just like the brain works through association, like you're going to start to be more aware of it. So
yeah, I noticed, it was definitely took a lot of intention, and like just having it in my mind a lot more, like to be able to remember and like be able to see and observe what was going on in my dreams. But yeah, just as I was explaining that one lucid dream that I had, that really does seem like a metaphor for how we live, where you think you can't do something, or you think you are restricted, to the life that you currently have, but you always have a choice to, there's always some kind of choice you can make, even though a lot of times it feels like there isn't.
Yeah.
I want to continue this in a second. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Okay, sure. While you're at the bathroom, I'll hold up some of these. So these are the different kind of tokens. So this was like the original. This one's brand new. It was made last night. A little bit bigger. That's okay. I'm just holding up some of the symbols to the camera in case you want to use it. I'll also hold this up too if you want to show any images of the actual flyer of the event for Saturday.
Oh, yeah, you should definitely talk a little bit about that. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the show. This is the flyer, and it is on 2/20/2020. And it is at. I'm going to talk about the venue first because
it looks pretty interesting.
It's really interesting. So it's this place called the Dragon's Den. It was originally St. Mary Magdalene's Church. It's a cathedral style church in Homestead that it's like really beloved in the community. Like they've tried to keep it going for years and years, and it's like had a weird history. It's like burned down like 3 times, and they keep restoring it. And it got to the point where it was just like the community couldn't afford it anymore, and it was just done. So this couple, they were able to purchase the church, and their intention is to create a ropes course and a zip line for youth. So it's going to serve the community of Homestead, mostly like the underprivileged youth community there. And you walk in, and on both sides there are these obstacle course, ropes course, zip line. There's a zip line that runs the length of the church. It's crazy. It's beautiful. It's unique. And they're going to be opening this summer. So it's not complete. They're still doing a lot of work on it. But the course itself pretty much is. The zip line's there. And the acoustics are amazing because the church, the churches are built for that. And so I'm going to be having my release show there, and it's going to serve as that, but also a fundraising event for them. So 18% of all the tickets are going to go to the Dragon's Den. And it's also to raise awareness of what they're doing, because no one's heard of this place. This is brand new. So the event itself is going to be kind of like have a little bit of like a festival vibe to it. It's from 6 to 9 p.m. on Saturday, and you walk in at 6 o'clock. There's going to be ambient music by Monkey Goddess. They're this world music duo. They're going to be playing like kind of Native American flute stylings and acoustic, just music. And then there's a choir loft where it is actually going to be the launching point for the zip line whenever they're open. So the acoustics are amazing up there because that's what it's built for. And I'm having 4 singer-songwriters come up and share music from the choir loft. And each one of them is going to present a song, and we're going to harmonize on each other's music. And it's called the Choir Loft Sessions. And it's just like really good vibe music. Stuff gets stuck in my head. It's so great. Really good people. Guy Russo, Lauren Desmaché, Dave Bulowitz, Jason Gamble. And I can actually announce this here because he confirmed Dominic Antonelli is going to be there, and he is just this phenomenal guitarist and singer. He's been living out in Boulder for the last 4 years or so. And then I teach for the Hope Academy, and I work with kids and teach them music. But we're going to have 2 Hope Academy students who just won the Shakespeare competition finals they're going to actually do a monologue, the Romeo and Juliet monologue that they just won first place for. So they're going to do that at the church. One of my students, CC Walker, who's a really spunky, young, creative talent, is going to sing. We're going to do a duet together. And then Scott and Rosanna are going to open up the show. Scott and Rosanna are this husband and wife duo. Her voice is incredible. Scott's guitar playing is amazing. And Rosanna now sings with Buffalo Rose. And and they're going to do the opening set. And during this entire time, there's going to be live painting by Seth Leibowitz. Seth Leibowitz is phenomenal. He studies with Alex Gray pretty regularly and is my favorite Pittsburgh artist.
Cool.
And then Empath Sober Bar is going to be serving drinks, so locally, naturally, organic drinks that are infused with, their love. They're going to be spreading, they're going to be vending that. They're also going to be donating 18% of their sales back to the Dragon's Den. And then my set will be a couple of solo songs, and then Taragape will play. This will be the first performance of Taragape. And Taragape is just a new kind of collective that I'm cultivating. And right now we have James Bristol playing bass of the Hills and the Rivers. Brianna Caraher playing cello. Matt Price playing drums. And Nishwan Abdullah, or Nash, playing violin and fiddle. And it's all been coming together. They've been working really hard. And we're going to present the album in its entirety. We're going to have lighting by Xenon Events. Nick Petrunak of that company will be there doing all lighting, doing all the sound. And it's just going to be a lot of really good people, really good music in a space that's for the community. And you'll get to buy the art prints and the merch that I've shared, the laser cut wood prints, and get to see the Dragon's Den. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. That's a lot of stuff. That's like, how long did it take you to coordinate all of these things?
It's been, I've been working real hard I booked it probably 3 months ago, but I've been working real hard for the last 2 months, pretty nonstop, to make sure everything's going and coming together. And I'm happy to do it because, I think I love experiences. I want to create an experience, and I love Pittsburgh, love it. But sometimes I go out west and I'll go to a concert and they'll have belly dancers on the stage and they'll have costume changes and they'll be you'll be at this show and you'll be wow, I'm immersed in an experience. It's more than just the music. So that's kind of what I'm trying to present. Oh, and I forgot to mention one of the most interesting parts is we're going to have during my set and throughout the night, Ishkade is a flow artist and acrobat, and she's going to be doing dancing with lights, and she's actually going to be doing some fire spinning for the set. And then Camille Zamboni is a renowned contortionist. She's going to be doing some really cool contortion arts. She's actually going to be hanging from the zip line with her hoop behind us, all lit up while we're playing. It's going to be wild. So it's a lot. Come check it out.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I'm planning on it. Okay, cool. Just looking at a little bit of time. I'll put the links to that. And put the information when I post this. I kind of want to. I'm kind of curious about. You've mentioned plant medicines, a couple times, and that you like to do mushroom meditations. I was just curious, what does that entail for you? Or what is that, if you care to share?
I would love to share, and honestly, this is another thing that we could do a couple series of podcasts on. Yeah. In short, I was very late to the game when it came to working with any sort of psychedelic because I had so much fear around it. And just the war on drugs, the propaganda, everything that we've grown, generations before us have grown up with, I was so fearful going into it. And, it took me until my mid to late 20s to really, really explore it and to have the courage to do so. And I'm very, like I said, I'm very experiential, I'm very empathetic, I'm very intentional with my experiences. So I started to notice when I was going through these experiences that, yeah, it's really fun to be like open-eyed and like looking at the world and be like, oh, this is like feels weird, sort of, yeah, man, like, whoa, what am I, let's go to see a show. And like, that's fun, that's great recreationally. But what I started noticing was I would close my eyes and just let these visions start to come to me. And I soon realized that I am not creating this. Like, this is not me. This is a co-creation with something. And it was the most fascinating thing that I'd ever experienced in my life, aside from lucid dreaming. Like, and I think they share a very similar space. I think there's a lot of similarities there. And I think there's, theories about dimethyltryptamine, DMT being produced when we dream from our pineal gland. And dimethyltryptamine and psilocybin and lysergic acid, they're all cousins. If you look at the molecular structures of them, they're all, the foundations of them are the same. They just have different, limbs, so to say, of their molecules. So what I started to notice was that I'm getting these amazing fractal flowing visions that really fascinated me. And since I'd done a lot of dream work and a lot of recall already, I was able to go into that state and I was able to recall it and able to kind of record it. So then I was lucky enough to go and work in Peru. And I that was when I found out how to properly like do a ceremony, and to the best of, the Western ability, the Western mindset ability, but they did it really well. They brought in these shamans that were of the Shipibo tribe who've been working with ayahuasca for thousands of years. And we sat in a maloca, which is a wooden round structure, and there were 18 of us, which I still think is a lot of people, and they do more, which that's a different conversation. But basically, it's 8 o'clock at night, you drink the medicine, and then by 8:45, they turn out, they have one candle burning in the middle of the room, and it's dark. So the whole experience is going in. Everything that you're experiencing is in the dark, it was behind closed eyes. So I really developed how to cultivate that during that and brought that back here. And since mushrooms are kind of a cousin of ayahuasca in a way, which DMT is what the active compound in ayahuasca is, I started, less recreational and more like and I started following the moon cycles too. And that's actually a great way to go about it. Like, okay, there's a new moon coming up. I'm going to set the intention a week or two in advance, and I'm going to plan to get my diet in order that day, make sure I take care of myself. I'm going to fast a couple hours beforehand. I'm going to ceremonially imbibe in an appropriate amount of this medicine in a responsible way. And I'm going to either put on some good music or just go silent within and lie down and close my eyes, or sit and close my eyes.
Yeah.
And I am blown away every single time.
Just like what happens when you do that and you just are just still and quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, it's so fascinating because like, I'm not a religious person. I'm a deeply spiritual person. I hate when people say that too. I'm hearing myself say that because it's such a cliche to say.
I mean, I would categorize myself as the same.
Yeah, a lot of people do. But one of the most popularized sayings that we claim that Jesus has said is, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And nothing in my life experience has shown me a glimpse of that other than working with plant medicines and closing my eyes.
Yeah.
And once you start to see like sacred geometric figures that are perfect, and like you're like, oh my gosh, like this stuff is kind of like the fabric of our universe, and it's real. Like I couldn't draw this. I couldn't, and it's there. So over the last 5 years or so, I've cultivated that. And yeah, and I'm happy to talk more about it. And I actually like holding space for other people too, because now I'm at the point where like I've had enough experience. I still like to do it, but I want to share, at least in my methods of how to cultivate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's refreshing to talk to somebody who kind of uses them in that way, beyond just the recreational kind of change of consciousness that you get. But yeah, that really is exploring the kind of a different side of it.
Yeah. Yeah, there are all different ways to work with it, just like there's all different kinds of music, there's all different kinds of everything, and I just encourage people to be more intentional, like
Right.
in their day-to-day life. And you will be surprised at how it kind of comes back to you, because it really is more connected than we can even fathom, in my opinion, in my experience. You have your own experience, you can, that's fine. But in my experience, that's how it's been.
It always seems that there's always lots of things that make it seem that way whenever, like the synchronicities and the things that seem to happen, that are beyond coincidence.
I guess I can end this part with this thought, and I believe it, and I think that the more you acknowledge the universe, whatever you want to call it, the more it will acknowledge you. And I think that's just kind of a principle of it, is the more that you say, I see that in my life, I'm aware of that, I'm taking note, the more it will kind of give that back to you.
Yeah, right. Kind of reflecting your own energy and, like intention and thoughts and stuff. Yeah, I would have to agree with you.
For sure. I could talk about all this stuff for hours, but this has been really great. Thanks for inviting me over.
Yeah.
This has been this is what I need, because I've been doing so much promotion, so much running around, stressing out, like getting everything in order. But this is where the real like magic is, like actually sitting down one-on-one or talking or actually playing the music, so thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. I'm sure you're super busy trying to get ready for this release, which is coming right up. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And we'd love to do it again and dive a little deeper into dreaming and all the kind of consciousness kind of topics that we just lightly brushed on here.
Great. I look forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's the end.
Yeah, the end. Thanks. Hope to see some people Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll see you there.